Is his house?
All right, grasshoppers, we are live. and, and so we were just talking about how the three of us met at the dump and our next excursion. And maybe we'll make this, I don't know, should we tell everybody we're going or not, or when we're going to go? We're going to go to Costco, the three of us together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on one condition. Dave
What's
doesn't
that?
start throwing anything.
I might need some help if the lines are long. If the lines are long, I can't stand. That's like, well, I wasn't alone, right? But we're all in this situation early in this pandemic that's gone on longer than I think anybody expected, right? I went over there first couple of times, and the lines weren't too bad. And the next three times I went over, the lines were out of the parking lot down. I said, forget it. I'm not going in there. I'm not standing in line. And then I'm thinking to myself when I'm driving home, like, what the hell else have I got to do?
Yeah, I know.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
But now we got to do it on Thursday afternoons because it's 2:00 on Thursdays.
Yeah. Well, Dave, you've been living in Greenwich for longer than any of us two have been, right?
Right.
Do you even know where Tom lives? Has he ever invited you to his house? No, serious question. This is very serious.
Yeah.
I live across the street now, and I
Dave's over here once a week, Gresh. I didn't want to tell you.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to put a Johnny Cash on now.
When my boys were smaller, we used to go to Costco, and I used to crawl into the coolers with the glass doors and pretend I was locked in there. They just mortified them. They were like embarrassed. All the other people looked like, what is going on with this guy? Oh,
do you remember when Nick Fatio climbed on the luggage? The luggage thing and came out with the luggage in those days where we were almost close to human beings, where we actually had to wait for our own luggage.
Yeah, I know.
Stuff like that.
How about when guys would fall asleep on a plane and they take their shoes off? So somebody grabbed the shoes and put them on the carousel too. So the guy'd have to walk through the airport with no shoes on. Then here's some shoes going around the carousel.
I did that to Chris Nyland.
Oh.
And I passed it back to Van Beesbrook and Darren Turcotte.
Yeah.
And then they hit it right up on top.
Right.
So this is like in the halfway through the trip. I come back from LA. So I get up, I take it out of the thing, and I take it in the back, and I throw it down the toilet thing, right? Now, nobody knows where it is but me. So Chris gets up, can't find his shoe. We walk out. We're walking out. The thing he's walking with one shoe, takes the other shoe off, throws it in the garbage. We walk outside. It's raining. And then you know what he did then after that, right? He went and slashed Turcotte's tires. And he only did one tire. And he was with Mark Hardy. Mark Hardy goes, oh, yeah, you got a lot of balls. One tire. He has a spare. So he knocks kids out, does the other tire. And then he put a fish. Then he put a fish under Van Beesbrook's free Volvo.
Oh, God. Chloe.
No.
Who is it? Take it. Is it Kotze?
I don't know.
That's John Van Beesbrook calling.
Mark Hardy, I wasn't there.
It was you all these years.
Yeah. So, guys, any home improvements going on, Dave? Any climbing up any ladders or?
No home improvements. They come fall time, it'll be clean up. And my second son Dan just closed on a house in Stamford on Monday, and he and his wife are moving there. And he's got a nice little storage shed. So there's going to be some junk. Well, I shouldn't say junk, but then we'll donate it to the new homeowner. Which the power washer is going to have to go over there because I really don't have a place to store it.
Right.
So,
your house is too small, right?
Yeah.
I saw your house.
Dave, I keep forgetting to tell you, when I go to Todd's Point in the morning for a little march, the guy there is always asking where you are, why you aren't riding your bike around there anymore. So
yeah. Well, the problem is, they beat up a lot of the road, right? So we got a Peloton through this. I think we've talked about this. So I do the Peloton. Although I was out on the bike 2 days ago. But yeah, it's good when that guy's there because my card most times hasn't been updated quite yet. And when he's there, he does let me in. Yeah. I don't want to get him in trouble, though.
I know. Yeah, I won't say his name, or we're going to get him in trouble.
No.
Well, I didn't know you had to pay to be there.
Well, you got to get your pass, your yearly pass from him.
Yeah. Well, Gresh, you know how many people Gresh knows. Like, he probably knows half the
No.
Every union guy that works in town, Gresh knows.
Probably knows the Todd family that donated the land to the town of Greenwich.
Well, I might. I'm not sure. But anyway, let's talk some hockey.
Well, let's, first we got a couple of serious note. I'm sure everybody knew Barry Beck had a wake, I believe on Monday for his son Brock. There's a GoFundMe page for Brock Beck as well. I think they're trying to raise money for a few things. I think to get so they try to find the reward for the people who took part. So,
I talked to, remember Danny Clark, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I talked to Danny, and Barry had a little celebration for Brock in Vancouver a couple of days ago, and Danny showed up, and Paulie Schmier, and
who
else was there? Mark Lofthouse.
Oh, wow.
And Murray Beck, Barry's brother, who's a little older, a couple of years older. And I played with Murray Beck in back in the 70s in junior.
Right.
And I guess it was really nice. And Barry got up and said a few words. And I think about that thing. I got kids, and
I can't imagine.
My heart just breaks for him.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I was asked to do a reading at my son's wedding last summer, and I couldn't handle that.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine how one gets through that. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that works. I mean, it's got to be just so hard for Barry, and knowing him, I've known Barry since he's probably 15 years old. And I can't. Like when my kids go away, they leave my house and they go home. I worry about them until they get home to call me.
All right.
I know you're not supposed to be like that, stupid, but
that's I don't think you ever get over that, really. But
yeah.
All right. Some really sarcastic, sad news. Our buddy Mike Milbury did not survive the bubble. He went home after making some more derogatory comments towards women. So, sure, we're all upset about that.
Why would you want to get women mad? Listen to me. They like. You're always better to be on their side because they're a lot tougher than we are. I got
smarter too.
Smarter. Hold it. Hold it. Saying women are smarter than us is kind of cutting them down.
It's a low bar.
They're way smarter than us.
But don't you think it's funny how it took us years to get into our 60s before we finally figured out that they were smarter than us?
Yeah, there's a lot of things we know now that we didn't know growing up. I think So the thing is now too, especially in this environment, right? I think if he just, I don't know, I was actually watching the game when he made the comments,
right?
And it's almost like, and then you're like, oh boy, if you just left it at family or distraction or something like that, and they hadn't zeroed in, and a lot of people say, wow, what's with the women? You know what? You can say what you like, but. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
In this day and age. And again, you can say what you like, but there's going to be consequences.
And I think with him too, it's a cumulative effect, right? I mean, he said so many things that have
no question.
Yeah. I think about too, like that. There's so many good people on the TV and radio, you included Dave, obviously, that's really represent the league well and the hockey community well. And for him to be on and making those comments, it's like, oh God, do people really think that that's what hockey people are like? So
you know who I think is really good is that goalie,
Brian Boucher.
Yeah.
Tommy represented, didn't you, Tom?
Yes, I did. Yes,
I love the way
he's great.
He's so on top of everything. I mean, when you listen to the game, he's interesting to listen to. I think it's hard for those guys in the studio that are in there, like Carter and those guys, a little tougher because you're not really watching the game as close. Dave, when you do it on TV. Or you do it live. I mean, like you guys are doing, it's much different.
Yeah.
To pick out different things of the game. I know you're watching the game close, but you get more replays, I guess.
Well, that's the thing too. Like so NBC, you give them credit for putting their foot in the water with the contract, and then when you kind of hire the guys that like to live on the edge a little bit, you live by the sword, you die by the sword a little bit. And Jeremy Roenick's another example of a guy that. Sometimes you're like, and I agree with Tom. It's a lot of times it's cumulative, right? It's like, maybe get away with this, maybe not, but at a certain point, it all adds up. And,
totally.
And it becomes like a bad marriage,
Yeah, I think the things for me too. I like to try and remember that, and I know it's a cliche, but it's still a game. It's a big business.
Yeah,
and I think we all can look back, and it's easy to find those times. however it worked for me, I have a really good memory of the game. I don't have, and that's why I really enjoy what I'm doing now. I've got the opportunity to do what I like. I really like the game. I like the people in the game, and I don't know, listen to somebody just like be a little bit sour. I said it before. You have a beer with Mike Milbury, you're like, yeah, he's slam. He's okay, but I don't know. Anyway, so
yeah, I've been lucky to do a few of these podcasts with some military guys, some Navy SEALs and everything. They talk so much about the brotherhood they have. I think it's the same thing with us, right? I mean, I know we talked about this before, even like Clark Gillies getting on here, and we were all like the big monster. But then we get on, and us, it's like best friends for
the big eyebrow. You mean the eyebrow?
Oh, yeah. No, that's so true. I mean, we are a fraternity, and I'm really quite proud of being a part of that fraternity, and quite proud of how we seem to be viewed by most people.
Yeah.
And, I think, I don't know, I'm sure you guys have heard, you hockey guys are, you guys are pretty good guys.
Yeah. Isn't that true when somebody says that about us?
Yeah.
You're proud of it, right? You're proud that you're.
Totally.
I think a lot of that has to do with hockey, that the violent part of it. So you kind of respected other guys you played against because you knew that doesn't matter how tough the toughest guy was, somebody was always tougher.
Yeah.
So you kind of learn to have respect for other players. You kind of learn just different things that you love the game. Like people go to me like, you still watch hockey? Why wouldn't I? I've been skating since I'm 3 years old. I've been watching, I love hockey.
Right.
It got me to where like I got nothing bad out of hockey. Put it that way. Everything was great.
Yes, you skated when you were 3 years old.
Well, slowly. Like I said, when I got to be 20 in the NHL.
He still had puck then, and nobody could get it from him.
I was much faster at 3. Put it that way.
Isn't that true? Grass makes me so mad.
Speaking of, do you remember when your first memory of hockey as a kid? Do you remember?
Yeah, my first one. Yeah, I do. My first memory was I was 5 years old and I was watching it. We had an outdoor rink, right, where I grew up, and they had the snow up against the boards on the outside, and you'd stand in the snow and you'd watch the game. And I remember getting hit in the face with a puck. My nose was bleeding, and my parents owned a hotel across the street. They took me home, and I remember sitting on the sink and they were cleaning my nose off. I'm going, just leave it. I want to go back and watch the rest of the game. and they're cleaning my nose. I'm all full of blood because my nose that's how it started getting bigger right then.
My first memory was they built a brand new rink in Bramalea, Ontario. It had the old, like the mesh, instead of glass, had the mesh around and everything. And they had a clinic going on a Sunday morning. So, we lived on the farm, and to get, on a Sunday morning to get to the rink, it wasn't like a 25-minute drive. Right. And got there. So I was like 5 or 6 years old, and the kids were all skating backwards. And I knew I couldn't skate backwards. So the fake tears start flowing. I'm not going on. And my mother is just mad. Like she'd gotten up on a Sunday morning to get me there. So we go home, and then as the week goes on, I'm now thinking, okay, I'll go back and try it again. So this time my father takes me to the rink. Same thing. They get the skate backwards there, and I start crying. I won't go on the ice. My dad had a buddy, took me out to center ice. He said, "Oh, you don't have to skate, but that's the only way you're going to get off." So he put me in center ice, and I started skating. That was it.
Nothing changed when you're skating backwards, though.
Oh, no, and I still start crying, too, when I
I remember, I was young when we lived in Lindsay, Ontario, and then we moved out to the farm out in the country. And my dad, we had a little, in memory, the driveway was little then. So I can't imagine really how little it was. And it had a bit of a slope. So my father would flood it and try and make a rink, but he could never get it flat. So finally, the neighbors across the street, the Bowmans, they made an outdoor rink in the corner. And so we would, they put the pucks down. And then I remember like once over the course of the winter, they shut it down to allow the figure skaters to go out. And you're like, figure skaters? Why should they be on the ice? It's for hockey guys. And that's really what I think back now, of just how innocent it was and how much you're upset because those figure skaters might have got it like an hour a month.
Yeah.
Somebody once asked me about, did your parents drive you to the rink? I lived like a mile from the rink probably, right? My mother would tie my skates at the back door and I'd skate to the rink in northern Saskatchewan. You didn't have to nobody had to drive you. You just skated up there. You know.
Remember things like getting new equipment, like a new pair of gloves and stuff like that. How cool that was too when you were a kid.
We used to get new Sears catalog pads.
Yeah, and you walk to school 7 miles each way uphill.
Uphill 7 miles each way. And,
No, well, we didn't. Hey, listen to me. I can't use that. When I grew up in Saskatchewan, there was no hill.
no
There was no
mountains.
hills. There was no
Well, listen, I was lucky. Both of you guys were only boys, right?
Yeah.
And so I eventually, I was the oldest of. I'm the oldest of 7. I have 3 younger brothers now, but in their young days, so my brother Bob. So I was born in July of '56. My brother Bob was August of '57, and Don was September of '58.
So they had no TV back then.
Irish triplets, right? So, but when it came to equipment, I would get all the new stuff. Like I'd buy, my dad would buy skates. So that's why I always really commend Don on how hard he worked, because he probably never got a pair of skates that actually fit him. When he played junior, regardless of what size they were, he got them 3rd time removed.
That's right.
However he ended up the way he ended up, you got to give him credit, because I swear to God, same with gloves or anything, sticks. Yeah. Forget it. I always got the first pick, and so that was the perk of being the oldest.
Gresh,
maybe that's where Donnie got the foot thing with the puck.
Well, yeah,
he couldn't skate on his skates because they were too old, so he had to stick handle. He had a bad stick from Dave.
Yeah, exactly. The thing was probably broken 2 or 3 times, right?
well,
Tape back up.
I didn't want to bring that part up at all.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think a lot of too when we think and we talk, and we're up, a generation or 2 ago that we played, but we're all from pretty humble roots, right?
Yeah.
So, and by and large, that's still, despite I think in a lot of ways, particularly in America, I think we're more exposed to American youth hockey, all 3 of us now, than certainly our Canadian roots. But in America, I always remember the richest kids in Lindsay, Ontario, were the Mackey brothers, and their father owned the funeral home.
Oh,
right? And they played tennis, and they went to ski, and they played a little golf in the summer. And the rest of us were like, skis, like skiing.
Hey, Dave, when I skied the first time was with you.
Yeah, in Austria. That was the first time I skied also.
Remember the guy, we showed up there, and the guy goes, "Oh, it's going to be freezing up there," and he sold us like all that stuff to wear, Tommy. And the guy was like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be cold up top of the mountain. Oh, it'll be freezing." So he sold us all this stuff, right? All this ski stuff. We get up there, it's about 100 degrees up there.
So
we skied in our jerseys.
Gresh and I were on the taxi squad for the Team Canada in 1967. Yeah. So Gresh was probably wheel number 7 on a 10-wheel machine. I was probably 9. And so, but we never made the tournament. So we played the games, the pre-tournament games. The tournament was in Vienna. And so, was it Bobby Murdoch, Donnie's brother? I think.
Yeah.
That was his brother. Yeah.
So we went, and I remember because, and then there were the women at the bottom of the hill were like, we could show up all this gear on, and there's women at the hill. They're like their bikinis sunning themselves.
That guy conned us too. When we got back, he was closed.
Yeah.
We had to return the skis.
Yeah.
We just had him outside.
Yeah.
He sold us all this crap, but
right.
I remember going to we went to Italy to Rome, remember?
Oh yeah.
And we went to some I don't know, some bar or something somewhere, and it was
shocking. We go to bar.
We went to a bar. It was called the American Bar.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
So you need to go.
JD was there. JD was with us.
They were. That was the Black Sheep, right? There were like Savage, Dennis Marouk, JD, Bobby Murdoch, Wayne Merrick, Dennis Marouk. They were. But then, like our wine drinking, right? So we're in Italy. You think now we're a little bit older. But then we're just trying to drink enough of it to get drunk, right?
Right.
You don't even care what it tasted like. Oh God! Thank God I went back. We went back. My wife and I, my brother and my sister-in-law went back to Italy last September and took a little bit more of a flavor for the culture there. But I do remember. I remember Rome was fun.
Yeah, I was just unpacking some boxes. I saw some of the pictures we had, Dave. I can't show them all.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress here. So it's,
You do. Yes, you do digress.
Yeah.
How are we feeling about the playoffs, sir? Who we liking?
Well, it's funny. I mean, it's such a game-to-game thing. You have to. No, I still think the Islanders are going to be a tough out.
Yeah.
It's Colorado's a little banged up, right?
Yep.
I mean, they're healthy, and I don't think you can discount. Hey, you can never discount the health of a team.
Yep.
Like if you're healthier, and Dallas is pretty healthy, and they've got some savvy.
And Dallas is better and better too, right? I mean, I didn't think they were playing well early. They started playing better and better along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I like. It's funny how you watch Vancouver, all those young guys in that team, right? And JT Miller, who was a Ranger one time, my son's favorite player.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's the little bread man, but that's how he's playing. He's like unbelievable, that kid.
Yeah, well, he's got that wheelhouse, right? 26 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. He. What about how about the Boston Tampa series? You see Boston see the game last night?
Yeah, and I think that's one of those nights where you get spanked.
Right.
Yeah, if you're going to lose, you're going to lose. Who cares? I tell you, I wasn't too high on Tampa going into it. I thought they had the talent, but I just didn't think they realized how to win. Right? The things you have to do to win. And I think they're starting to learn. I think the Columbus series was big for them. That they learned a lot there. It seems like they're learning a lot from Boston too. All those little plays you have to make to win. I like them.
How good is that? What's that, Crash? How good is that? How good is Braden Point?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. He's a good player. He's a mini McKinnon almost.
Yeah.
He's got the same kind of darting, hard style. He's not nearly as big or as heavy. Yeah, that kid's a good player. His name is Barzell.
Yeah, Barzell's good. Barzell's on the ice. Every time Barzell's on the ice, it's like something's going to happen, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think the games are great. The time they were off and the effort they put into getting out there, it's great.
Remember when we played in the playoffs? We played more frequently than they do normally now.
Back to back.
Yeah. So I think that's better. I think it's better to just keep the interest in front of people. Try and shorten the season up.
Yeah.
I just think a lot of the excitement and the good play. I don't think the play is suffered because they're playing back to back.
This whole back to back thing being so negative, I think that's just it's crept into the game, and it's like something people now believe, and because they believe it, it actually starts to happen. Yeah, I mean, it locks the back to backs. I mean, you're playing back to back. So's the other team. It's fair for everybody. Yeah.
Well, in the '80s, we used to play 5 and 7 nights to start out if you won 5 games in the first round.
Sure.
Big deal. Who cared? Nobody cared.
Now, in fairness to the hub, obviously, there's no travel, right? There's everybody's there.
Yeah.
But the way they travel now, even it's not like they can either sit on the plane or sit in their living room if it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So, I think I would like to see when we get back. Hopefully, we'll get back to normal and just have that play on a little more condensed, where we're not kind of stretching it out in 2 games in 6 nights or something.
But doesn't the league kind of want to stretch it out a little bit as far as like be relevant that much more, like as far as time?
I guess right. There's got to be some rationale to it, and I don't think it's just lobbed out there.
Yeah.
So it seems to me you keep the interest up. Rather than that day, and then the weather starts getting nice. And
that's true. Sometimes in the finals, when they have those days off, like 3 days in between, it's kind of like you can't forget about the game almost, right?
Right. And I think maybe they do it for. And I don't know what the TV numbers are and why prime time on Saturday night in late June makes sense or early June makes sense. And maybe it has to do with the best chance from the TV side. And hey, listen, you have to work with because it's part of your revenue too. So
What kind of a touchy subject? You see basketball canceled all the games yesterday.
yeah, well, it sounds like they're going to come back and play.
Yeah.
They just heard something. Well, so without getting into the issues, do you think players have the right to respond the way they do?
Well, I guess I hear you, Dave. Like the question, it's a great question. Do they have the right? Like I think to myself, okay, we want to try to accomplish something, right? If you want to change something, is that going to change? How does that change what's happening? Does it? Do politicians take notice more? Do the average citizens take notice more because they cancel basketball games? I don't. And honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I in some ways, I guess I admire them. They, instead of just being selfish to get a paycheck, they're sacrificing part of their careers to take a stand. So you have to admire that, no matter which way you fall on it. But I don't know, like how do we, like Kelly Rudy has, I don't know if you've seen him on social media. He's really taken a stand in favor of the Black Lives Matter, and it's interesting. Evander Kane very outspoken about how the league isn't doing enough, but I don't know what. So I really what they do to make a change.
What do you think, Greg?
I think racism is a disgusting thing. I mean, where I grew up in Canada, we didn't even, that wasn't even part of the thought process, right? Until I came to the States. And but I think that each individual has to change it on their own, and you have to like my kids have friends of every background, every ethnic background, color, whatever. I hang out with them, and they're all good kids. And I think that's how you teach. That's how you teach everybody to get along together. I don't think you can just, like, I think the rioting and burning stuff for people's buildings and their things that they work for are terrible. But I think if there's a protest, you should be able to protest, but without violence. And like I like history and stuff, and Martin Luther King. Everybody should listen to him. The guy was, for being back in the '60s and standing up like he did, took a lot of what.
Yeah.
And you listen to him, the way he talked and everything else. And I mean, I don't really remember when he was shot, but I remember that was like, I remember on TV and stuff, that was terrible. But the guy was from heaven sent to try to straighten everything out. And I think he did a great job. And everybody should follow his lead, even though he's not anymore.
Yeah, I don't think anybody remembers Martin Luther King as specifically a black man. I mean, I think if you remember him as a great leader and
right, exactly. That's exactly my point, Dave.
Right, and I just wonder, and I think it is improving. I think should a person be put in the penalty box for expressing his views or her views or something like that?
No, I also think that in sports, I don't know. I think after the game or whatever, I think everybody should they can express. But I think a lot of people go to the game, to a baseball game or whatever, sit in the stands, have a beer, and it's kind of their entertainment enjoyment, and that's the last thing they want to hear, and not that they're against anything.
Yeah, right.
I think everybody has the right to protest and do. I mean, some of the things that happened were awful. I mean, you can't imagine until you walk in
someone else's shoes, right?
So that person's shoes like that, and I think it's got to be, it's got to change, but it's got to change the right way so that there's no violence. The violence has got to go, and everybody just sit down and talk about it. Somehow.
That is good. The violence is doing nothing to help the situation. It's probably making it worse, right? And how do you can you legislate somebody not being racist? I mean, how do you get people to not be racist, right?
Well, I mean, they have hate crime laws. I mean, they just enforce them, enforce those things.
Yeah, but the idea that somebody is treating somebody differently because of their race, though, that's not a law issue to me. That's how that person was raised and taught.
Yeah, no, I know.
Like for us, I think we'd all speak for all three of us, right? Growing up in Canada, and I just never looked at anybody any differently. It didn't matter what it was, right? So,
well, I mean, growing up in Lindsay, Ontario, I think, we're all part of some tribe, one way or the other, and you're going to. So I remember growing up in Lindsay, Ontario. You were the Catholic or Protestant, but I
Yeah.
never, that because someone was Protestant, I didn't think that they were anything
Yeah.
less than me, or I was any better than them because I was raised as a Catholic. You know, it's just, and I think that, you know, granted, it is certainly is a touchy subject, but I think what we're finding now is there are more athletes, more of the community are becoming a little more aware and sensitive to the fact of, you know, everybody has the right to be or have the chance, women, people of color, people of language, people of religion. And I guess it's, you know, Gresh, I think you bring a good point. In conversation, if you're willing to listen to someone as opposed to tell
Yeah.
someone.
Well, I mean,
And it's really that understanding, right? Like Evander King gets on and like he says, we're not doing enough. And honestly, I'm very seriously, I'm not disagreeing with him. It's just, okay, what do we do, right?
Right.
You know, I'm willing to listen to anybody. It's just,
Yeah. Or if you have the opinion, maybe work a little harder to back it up with a bit of a solution or something to think about. But and again, I always like when things are expressed to me. Why don't you think about this, or why don't you look at it this way,
right.
or how about, you know, again, how about walking in his shoes or her shoes, and again, I think that's easier. The three of us sitting around here just chit chatting a little bit.
Yeah.
It gets emotional, and you get, you know, there are times there. Well, you guys specifically, but I can get pretty emotional about things, right? And when I think about, you know, and think, oh man, if I just kind of geared it, then, as the great philosopher Ron Greshner told me one time, he said, "We're born with two ears and one tongue. Use them in proportion."
Yeah, that's true.
I have quoted you a lot.
Listen, that's what my father used to tell me. My father used to say to me, "You got 2 ears and 1 mouth."
Yeah.
So he goes, "Listen twice as much,
Yeah.
and shut up.
Boy.
If you got nothing good to say, don't say it."
Right.
But I know. I just hope everybody can get together and try to get on the same page of this whole thing. And you know, it's sad because you see, I'm sure that in some of these neighborhoods, people are scared to death,
Mm-hmm.
and that you know, you go to like Chicago or something. I don't want to name. I don't want to get into that political part of it.
Right.
But I mean, it's people need help, and there should be help for them. Like I think you should be protected, and you should be able to walk on the street, and you know, I don't think, you know, that many people should be murdered.
But,
I
you
don't
know,
think anybody should be murdered. Matter of fact,
you know, and the whole, we're so divisive too, you know, like the political landscape now, whenever, what side you're on, you know, the media, it's all about fighting that other person on the other side. So we could all just, I think if we all just forget, like, we just got to think for ourselves, you know, and go talk to that other person, right? If you see somebody walking down the street, have a conversation with them. That's,
I think you should be, I think you should be able to. I think you should be able to talk to somebody, and you can reason with people and have a, you know, I have a friend of mine that lives up in Boston. He played for RPI, and he was the captain of the team when they won. I think it was '84 or something. He's Irish Iranian. Okay.
Wow.
All right. The name is Michael Sadapor.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been good friends for 35, 36 years. He taught at my hockey school. I think, Tommy, you met him. Kind of looks like he's got the same haircut. And
Hey, Tommy.
there you go.
Well, the same haircut as both of you. Anyway, he is such a great guy. We've been friends for a long time. When I met him, when he told me his name was Mike Sadapor, in my head, it never even dawned on me, like, am I supposed to like this guy or not like him?
Right.
He was just a good guy. He's a good guy. And I remember taking him golfing to Whippoorwill, and we were on the 11th hole as a par 3, and I hit the ball right, and it was 170 yards, whatever, to the hole. So I hit when he goes, "How far does it play?" I said, "About 230." So he takes out a 5-wood and he bangs it over the back of the green.
Yeah, wow.
I couldn't play the rest of the round because I was
Yeah.
laughing so hard. He was
Yeah.
so mad at me, he wanted to kill me.
There you go. Yeah.
He was a captain of RPI hockey team, and he had a tough time back in 1980 when the whole thing, you know, that whole thing happened because of his last name,
Right.
and which is terrible, which is wrong, just wrong.
Yeah.
Did we discuss that trade? We didn't have a show. The trade that Pittsburgh and Toronto made. That was,
Kapanen, no, that happened within
days
the
ago.
week. It's
do you know much about the other players involved, Dave? Like the younger kids?
no. You know, the thing that you get from Pittsburgh, like Toronto's going to have to consistently juggle, because of they're so tied into their top players in cap, right?
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh will continue to juggle because I think they still think they have a window with Crosby and Malkin.
Yep.
Now that window's probably going to close sooner than the window Toronto has because they're so young. So, but Jimmy Rutherford, you got to give Rutherford credit. Yeah. He's never been afraid to. Had you ever dealt with him along the way, Tom?
Yes, I did actually. You know what? When I first started the agent business, he was the GM for the Detroit Junior Red Wings.
Oh, wow.
Owned by Pete Carmanis. And I went to visit him just to say hello. I knew him because he played, and he was excellent to me. Like he went out of his way to help me to, give me a couple of players on the team. Really good guy, and stayed in touch. And then dealing with him as I went through my career, and he got up to the National Hockey League. Always a straight shooter, just a guy who told you what was going to happen, what he could do and what couldn't do. And no, he's good.
Jimmy, Dave, you played with him.
Yeah, he's Team Canada. I worked with him at Bobby Orr's camp for. I worked there for 7 or 8 years, and
I was sad when he retired because he was the only goalie I could score on.
Jimmy Rutherford in those days, so that's the mid-70s. So Jimmy's not a big man.
No,
not at all. He had a Lincoln Town Car that was about a block long, and he'd get out or get into the car, and you could, you'd be driving.
Is Jimmy Rutherford?
Yeah. It was so much fun. Him and Bob Daly were pals a little bit. Boost was 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
Those me, but Jimmy was great.
Yeah, and everybody's beating him up, thinking that he got the worst of that trade. But I mean, it's one of those deals. You got to wait and see what all those other names there that you really don't know much about. You got to wait and see.
Kapanen was originally drafted by Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So somebody's probably still there. I don't think Jimmy drafted him, but so it's again. I think you'll see. How about did you see where Phoenix got kind of
second pick? Wow,
second this year and first next year.
And the GM that was doing it all is gone now, too.
Yeah. I don't know the nuts and bolts to the story. They have
the kids in
for the pre-combine or something, right, Tom?
Yeah, there's a certain time where they're allowed to bring kids in for the testing, and they were outside that time limit. And I don't know why they would do it, though. Like, it didn't. It's almost like they didn't know the rules, but that would be surprising. I mean, so
yeah. Well,
I think for Pittsburgh, going back to Pittsburgh, though, I think Pittsburgh has to bring in a Reeves or a Wilson or one of those guys because Crosby gets the crap kicked out of him.
Not too many. I agree with you. Not too many of those guys around, though. That's the problem. I mean,
well, you got to have. I mean, like, listen to me. Like Patrick Marleau was a good player, had a great career, but I'm sure there's got to be a guy that can score no goals and go out there and be physically tough. There's got to be somebody. There's got to be some Canadian somewhere behind a tree.
But you know what I hear you, Gress. The only thing is, I think now it's being team tough, right? I mean, just like having one guy be a tough guy. I don't know how much that really.
Even the only place that you can fight anymore in the development leagues, in the Canadian junior leagues, and they're even starting to eliminate that.
Yeah,
and they have to, because honestly, these kids a lot of times are just that much more skilled. Like they're not. Again, it's amazing. And then it's from the top down, the role has been eliminated. But you still have, I agree, a team tough. I do agree with that. Like I watched Torrey Krug whack Johnson last night after the goal. Like the Bruins, and I think to a large degree that's a bit of an issue when Calgary doesn't have Tkachuk in the lineup.
Yep, totally.
Now Tkachuk can flat out play, but it's not so much. It's their top, and the thing Crosby gets himself beat up because he's not afraid. Like, he's not going to back down from anybody.
Like you look at those kids in Vancouver too, right? I mean, they got pushed around in game one, and they knew it was going to be coming again in game 2, but they played through it, right? I mean, like that's team tough, right? I mean, there's different kinds of team tough. It's like not letting the other team push you around, but yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but I think like, I think that if you think back to when we played, if you had Nicky Vitillo was on the ice, you were like a half-inch taller.
Oh.
Well, and the game is different then too, though, right? I mean, because just so much
guys that play with Wilson now, or they play when those two guys that play with Reeves, their skates are a little bit taller off the ice than other
Well,
guys.
the thing is, and I don't disagree, but I think Tom, there's not a lot of those guys around.
Yeah. No, I know.
Those guys are kind of outliers for that role, particularly Wilson. I can't think of another guy that does what Wilson does.
Yeah.
There's not another guy in the league.
Kids aren't coming up playing like that now, right? It's just they're not being trained that way.
Well, you can almost make it say it's almost like the McDavids of the world. You can say this guy's going to be the next McDavid. Well, you say this guy's the next Wilson.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, you're going to look pretty fine for a lot of trees in the Great White North. He really, honest to God, he can play with Kuznetsov. He can play with
anybody.
Like both penalties. He's on the power play. What other guy in the history of the game? But Gordie Howe never even killed penalties.
Yeah, I know. How about our boy Tortorella here getting the $25,000 fine? Did you guys see his interviews?
Yeah.
What did he find for not talking?
Yeah. Well, we've talked about torts, and I think all of us recognize. You know what? The guy's a hell of a coach.
Yep.
And you can't have everybody milk toast. You can't have Stepford coaches. You can't have Stepford personalities. You've got to have some personality.
Yeah.
And John knows he's going to get himself into trouble. So again, it's a little bit like we were talking before, like freedom of speech, right? There's freedom of speech, but there's freedom of response too.
Right.
So towards that's the way he has, and he's 25,000 light.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I just I do another podcast over that Kevin Allen used to USA Today, and he really thinks it's totally disrespectful, and I get his opinion on that, especially from a real true media member. Right. But there's a lot of people can't wait to watch the interviews, right? They want to.
I love watching them.
Yeah.
But not only that, of course, Keith speaks from his profession, and he, and he's right. But you got to know who you're dealing with too.
Yeah.
Now, again, on a public thing, John Tortorella is not going to show a warm fuzzy side. He's not.
Yeah,
He's not. But you know what? I remember thinking, because we were around him for 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and we get him away, and it's like a lot of things. Then I remember thinking, like he's got a wife, he's got children, his kids love him, he loves his kids, he loves his wife.
Yeah.
We got a little
they should do that.
We have a little breaking news here. I don't know if that's true or not.
Wow, I don't have my phone. Why don't you?
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay because I was going out drinking tonight anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, that's why they canceled it then, probably.
Oh, okay. Anyway, what they should do with Tortorella is like he's a dog lover, right? Animal lover.
Yeah, and horse now. Rescue horse now.
Yeah, but what they should do is they should have a dog sitting in one of the chairs and barking, and I'm sure John would answer the dog.
Well,
that'd be funny as hell. No, he should set it up for that.
Yeah.
I'll talk to that one over there. I'll talk to the smart one.
Yeah, I'll repeat my story. When I was asked to kind of host the dog walk on the west side of Manhattan, for John's charity, and my first question in the little question and answer period was, John, I don't at the risk of embarrassment or anything, but a lot of people think you'd rather kind of talk to dogs than the rest of us. He said, "You're absolutely right."
I didn't know that, but
yeah.
One of the Elliot Friedman here says on Twitter, players being told to prepare for cancellations tonight.
Well, listen, I think back to it's again indicative of the time, and I think again the league. So Major League Baseball, MLB canceled games last night. The NBA canceled games. There was one of the New York Mets knelt in sympathy with
He was very emotional. I think he was very how emotional he was after the
Oh
game.
yeah, I heard him. I didn't see it. I heard it on the radio on his car this morning. So I just think, it's the sign of the times that everybody has to be a little more sensitive to what's going on here.
Right.
And I actually I also heard a doctor of sports relations out of I think it was UCLA out and talked this morning about the fact that you can make your statement, but the leagues really are better off playing long term than sitting out and saying we're not going to play until this thing gets rectified or whatever. Because I think, Gresh, you were saying before, sport does play a pretty important role, for a release or for something like that. So you make your statement, and then you can say, okay, we're going to get back to work. We're aware of what's going on here, but we're going to get back to work to provide the entertainment that I think is valuable. Maybe. So. Yep. So we'll see. But Elliot Friedman's pretty good. He's really good, actually. Yeah. You know him at all? Have you met him along the way at all?
What's that?
Have you met Friedman along the way at all? Elliot Friedman?
Yeah. Good guy.
Another good dude, right?
Really good.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys, like the Elliot Friedmans and those guys that are, at Hockey Night Canada, those guys, they're good. They're good.
Yeah. Well, they do their work, right? So that was
they do work. They don't rely on somebody else to get them news. They go find.
They do their work. So most of the guys that end up being someone, and so it's good. So we'll see. That's not official.
So I guess that then we could just sit around and pick on Millbury a little bit more than really if we no games to discuss. So right. Your thoughts there.
Going to beat that one up, right? So
yeah. I have a question about Millbury.
Go fire away.
Okay, he played in the 70s and 80s. Dave, you played against him almost the whole time he played, and so same as me. Tom, you came in there halfway through, whatever. Do you think that Mike Millbury would have been as tough as he was without Stan Jonathan, Wensink, O'Reilly, all those guys?
Wayne Cash,
tough on the team too.
Oh, I would have been really tough.
Oh, God.
Al Secord, John.
I've been swinging my stick at everybody. Didn't matter.
Do you remember what it was to go into? Like they talk about the Philadelphia Spectrum, but going to the Boston Garden with those guys and that little rink and everything, and then when if you ever got thrown out of the game, you had to go through the Boston bench to get to the locker room. So, Jesus, gonna get any worse?
And there was no corners. You couldn't go hide in a corner there either, like in the building.
Well, that helps. As great as my all-time favorite best player in my memory is Bobby Orr, but he played half his career on 3/4 of a rink.
Yeah.
If he ever played like on the bigger surface his whole career, oh my God.
Yeah, okay.
Well, could you imagine Bobby Orr today?
Oh,
everybody goes, would he get as many points or like Gretzky? I go, no, you get more. the power play for the blue line on the power play is moved back 4 or 5 feet, right, from the much bigger area.
Right.
Imagine you could try to cover him back then, maybe 30% of the time. Now it would be 0 time.
Well, that was my second least favorite place to play, only because there was no place to hide. There was no place to go.
Yeah.
And whenever you tried to go anywhere, somebody was like, so I think Gresh and I were talking when they started legislating the hits from behind, which guys are coming harder now, they're bigger bodies, and they had to do it. I mean, if they had legislated those things in our day, like Philly and Boston wouldn't have been in the league.
Oh, God, yeah.
Philly wouldn't have, like the hooking and stuff. Oh, my God. They would have nobody left after the first period.
It is funny old games, right, with the hooking and the slashing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, how about if Gresh, going back to '84, Ken Morrow's goal?
Yeah.
If you break that thing down, there were probably 10 penalties would have been called on that play.
Yeah. I know.
Oh my God.
And one from the night before.
Yeah. Well, the thing too with Boston, at least with Philly, you would get a bit of a break. There'd be Billy Barber, be Reggie Leach. There'd be a couple guys on the wings anyway for us defensemen. And the only guy with Boston, and he was a hell of a player, is Rick Middleton.
Middleton, yeah.
Yeah, like he was, he'd beat you like, he was.
How could you hack him? You couldn't hack
Yeah.
him 'cause-
He was just. But they had those guys, the wingers. Like they had the guy in the net could stop it. The guy on the blue line could bring it in, or whether it was Cheevers or whatever who it was, and then down the middle with Phil, or Brad Parker. They came, and then on the wings, you're like, oh my God, get me!
Yeah. It was like a meat locker, for Christ's sake. Couldn't get up.
Yeah.
Who remember? You guys remember Harry Neal when he went to coach Vancouver? Like he was really open about like he wanted all his guys to fight all the time. Like he made a really good statement. Like, oh, that's great.
Yeah. Glenn Hanlon told me one of the best stories about Harry Neal. He was a chirper behind the bench, right?
Yeah.
So Glenn played for Harry when he was in Vancouver before he came to New York. He was chirping Nicky on the bench, and so Nicky stops in front of the bench, and the whole bench goes. Totally sold out the coach as being the chirping guy.
That's funny. That's funny. I hate even coaches chirping. Brian Murray used to do that. God rest his soul, we've lost him, but he used to do that, especially in Washington. Like if something's happening, he'd go stand there, you open the door, and he'd stand there at the door and be chirping at you. And unfortunately for him, he had a little bit of the lisp and everything too, right? So he's an easy guy to pick on when it's awful. And I hate to say it because we've lost him. He's passed away.
Yeah,
I won't say the things I said to him back then.
Oh God! When a coach would chirp at the other team, I was like, "Oh, don't do that." I mean,
didn't Vad Tommy tell you to knock out Clarkie?
Yeah, he said that Gillies, Vad with his French accent, right? And like, I know I've told the story so many times. Vad was so good to me. Like I was like his prodigal son or whatever. And he says in the island, he says, "Tommy, you go to the front of the net with that effing Gillies, you punch him right in the chest." And I was at that point where, as a young guy, and if Vad told me to do something, I was just going to do it. I didn't think through the whole process. And so I go to the front of the net, and the whistle blows, and I give a left jab in the chest. And, there comes that one eyebrow right across the top of it. What do you want? And I'm looking over at the bench, like, okay, so what am I doing now? Like, this is, I'm in a little bit of trouble with it.
What's step two? All right. Yeah. Well, that was Vad. Vad was he was meant for the new too when I was young. He dressed so well. And I remember, he was always, you'd go to the nice place. And I remember he said, whether you have a hot dog or a steak, you're going to pay the same amount. So you might as well eat.
Good. We used to go, was it Highs in Chicago?
Highs Steakhouse. Yeah.
And wasn't he big in didn't he have a lot of artwork or something?
Yeah.
And Vad was Lundqvist before Lundqvist was Lundqvist.
Yeah.
With the dressing.
Oh, yeah.
He used to take me to this place in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I go like, Vad, he goes, no, just buy all this stuff. I go like, okay, but I'm not going to wear it all.
Yeah.
We were buying suit jackets, the biggest pockets possible to put as many beers as possible in our suit. That was our best one. Remember Pav too? And Pav, we had the dress code where we had to wear a suit and tie. And Pav would wear the flannel shirt and corduroy pants like to practice. And then he would just add a corduroy jacket and any tie onto that outfit. And it worked. It was fun.
Yeah. Pav used to sit. I used to sit in that corner, and Pav was beside me, and then Robbie McClanahan was on the other side of Pav. And Robbie was like that. He'd fold his jeans and fold up his socks and put everything in there. And Pav looked like he just put a grenade to his locker. Whatever showed up.
Remember, he'd come to practice some days, and I'll be careful with the story. He'd come to practice some days, and he couldn't talk, right? Because he'd gone home and he played Bob Dylan. He'd gotten his guitar and sang Bob Dylan songs all day long. And he had some other.
Yeah.
He was doing too, but.
And that's fish, right? He used to go to fish and bow hunt.
Yeah. Remember when Pat was quit during halfway through a season, didn't he? Is that when he retired?
Yeah.
That was 85, 86.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know Barry. We talked about Barry before, and we've talked about Pav before.
Yep.
And
That's right.
Barry's been in Pav's situation, and Barry's been, the conduit for me when he posts on Facebook to keep up with going on Pav's life. So, a lot of characters along the way, and Pav was certainly one of them, right? So, So I guess the next thing from a Ranger standpoint will be the draft, right?
Yep.
And I guess probably have the draft, and then it'll be free agency. I think is probably how it will play out. And it was good to hear. I don't know if you paid attention to what Deputy Commissioner Daly talked about what's going on now and intimating what's going on, as they come. And there's every hope that they can get back up and going the 1st of December. And
they were talking about maybe 4 hub cities, right? Potentially.
Yeah. That was one thing. I think he was asked that and never really, couldn't. And why would he? He couldn't comment one way or the other. And but it's sort of reassuring to hear that they continue to have an idea of what they'd like to do if everything else falls in place.
I'd be interested to talk to some of these players that have, that's been there for a long time and potentially going to go to the finals. It's got to be mentally hard, right? I mean, not only are you fighting that mental battle to try to win that series, but now you're also saying to yourself, okay, now if I win the series, now I'm away from my family even more. I'm stuck in this environment. I was talking to some people who were there up in Toronto, and they said, you look out the window or through the fence, they're all blocked in, and people up in Toronto are just walking around like everything's normal. But in the meantime, you guys are locked into this bubble. So how it is. I mean, that's a long grind, right? Winning that Stanley Cup. So now you add to it that you're now stuck in this bubble environment. So imagine doing that they have no choice, but they imagine doing that for a whole season.
Yeah, I think it will play into that kind of the grind of it all. Although on the other side of that, I talked to Kenny Albert earlier this week, and of course he's in the lockdown out in Edmonton. And it's all fenced in, and Kenny's life is pretty simple. He does the games, he works hard and stuff like that. But he said the setup is really pretty good. They're down to 2 hotels out there, and there are activities planned, and there's access to food trucks, and there's access to. But after a while, I it's the same as all of us. You'd like to have the option to be able to kind of go out and be on the fence, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but listen, don't fool yourself. There's a lot of married guys that are happy they're there.
Okay, Mike.
Ron, do you want me to bleep that or what?
That was a joke.
Yeah, no.
If you're married, you got
our new nickname for Gresh is Mike Milbury.
If you're married and you got young kids and you're in there, it must be hard.
Yeah,
regular thing, you have a day off or whatever it is, or you're at home at a game, your kids are there, and it's something that's around you. It's
well, I think too. Knowing it's hard, and really, as dads on a day-to-day basis, even as every generation, are much more involved in their family's day-to-day activities, right? And from one hand, that's part of their life. On the other hand, that leaves mom at home with an awful lot of responsibility on her own, which for those of us who grew up when mom was at home, no deal. But as we progressed along here, as families are being raised, I bet some of those phone calls home to mom who's got 3 kids, and guys are going, well, how's it going? And they might not be hearing,
Yeah. Matt Martin with the Islanders, right? He just had a baby as Boomer side.
Yeah, and then you're on the other end, right? Well, how are things in Toronto? Well, they're okay. When you're really kind of recognizing really how hard it is to raise a family and how everybody's involved in it. And listen, I think it's the way it is, and I think it's good. I think everybody should be involved in raising a family. So that's all good.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. So no hockey, at least for tonight.
Yeah,
we'll see where that goes.
And I know, Tommy, you kind of sent out wondering could we get on, and we all put our thinking caps on, and maybe we can find somebody to bring in the conversation next week.
Yeah,
and. I know lots of people have suggested, so keep the suggestions coming, and we'll try and.
Part of the issue is we want to get the old guys on a little bit, but there might be a little bit challenged technically.
Not like us.
No, we're savvy.
computer savvy, tech
Or
savvy.
Tommy doing Word. It's like,
Yeah.
Tommy, that down.
Yeah, I had a big battle today. I had to take a PDF file and make it into a Word file so I could edit it. Finally, I tried and tried. And I finally sent it to my son. He got it done in 2 seconds. And
Yeah,
mission problem.
Yeah.
boy.
That's-
Well, that's another thing. You know, sometimes you gotta be, got to check the pride out of the way and just ask for help, right?
Oh, it was
Or-
tough.
or-
It was
or
like
just-
it was 24 hours of trying before I finally.
yeah. I couldn't get on my other computer behind me here, right behind this thing, and I couldn't figure out because it keeps jumping off. Whatever happens, like, you don't use it or whatever because it's on no more wires and stuff. I had no idea. I was getting so frustrated for 3 days. I finally got my son to show me. He goes, "Dad, it's like you click here and you click over here." I go like, I took a deep breath, didn't say anything. I said thank you because then I went outside and I was kicking the deck outside.
Doesn't that just annoy you where you're trying for days to get something done and your son steps in and gets it done in 2 minutes, right? So
Yeah.
Tom, he goes like this. I'm standing right here. He's standing here, and he goes like this. And I go like, okay, well, show me. He goes, I just did. You're on. I go, what? Oh God, that's all it is.
All right, boys.
Okay.
so we'll be back again.
That's touch base, and look forward to next week. Have a
All
good
right,
one.
guys. Yeah, see you, everybody.
All right, thanks.
Peace, brothers. Peace, brothers. Peace.